They came from the stars with arrogance in their eyes, an empire that had crushed 1,200 worlds. Certain Earth would be the next forgotten name in their path of conquest. They gave us 48 hours to kneel, but what they didn't know was that humanity doesn't kneel. From the ashes of their mockery, we rose. We hacked their tech, turned their weapons against them, and unleashed a fury the galaxy had never seen. This is not just the story of war. This is the moment the fire was lit, and the stars would never forget the name Earth. The underestimation, the Empire's pride, the Vorthak Empire stretched across the galaxy like a disease, consuming worlds and crushing civilizations beneath its iron fist. For 3,000 years, they had conquered 1,200 worlds, each victory adding to their unshakable belief that they were the universe's supreme beings. In the obsidian halls of their capital world, Vorthak Prime, the Council of Warlords gathered around a massive holographic display showing their latest target. Admiral Krelnox, his scarred carapace bearing the marks of countless battles, pointed a clawed appendage at the small blue world rotating slowly in the projection. His voice carried the weight of absolute authority as he addressed the assembled War Council. This pathetic rock calls itself Earth. Our scouts report it harbors a species that has barely mastered spaceflight. They fight among themselves with primitive weapons and have not even colonized their neighboring worlds. The council chamber erupted in harsh laughter, their chittering voices echoing off the crystal walls. General Vextar, whose reputation for crushing rebellions was legendary, leaned forward with interest. How many ships will we need to subjugate this world, Admiral? Krelnox's mandibles clicked in amusement. Our tactical analysis suggests a single battle group should suffice. Perhaps 2 ships if we encounter unexpected resistance from their crewed aircraft. The inhabitants call themselves humans, and they appear to be nothing more than violent primitives who cannot even maintain peace on their own world. The Emperor himself, ancient and terrible in his crystalline throne, raised one massive claw for silence. His voice, when it came, was like grinding stone. These humans interest me. Our reports indicate they possess an unusual trait, something our xenobiologists call adaptability. They claim these creatures can adjust to any environment, overcome any obstacle. Such a trait could prove useful in our labor camps. Admiral Krelnox bowed deeply. Your wisdom is infinite, great Emperor. We shall capture as many as possible for the slave worlds. The rest will be eliminated as standard procedure dictates. Earth's rude awakening DR. Elena Rodriguez had been monitoring deep space transmissions for 15 years, searching for signs of intelligent life beyond Earth. Her small observatory nestled in the Chilean mountains had detected strange signals before, but nothing like the massive energy signature that suddenly appeared on her screens at 3:47 a.m. on a cold Tuesday morning. Her hands trembled as she adjusted the quantum detection array, hoping against hope that the readings were wrong. The object approaching from the outer system was enormous, easily the size of a small moon, and it was moving at speeds that defied every law of physics she understood. Without hesitation, she reached for the emergency communication link that connected her directly to the Global Defense Network. This is Deep Space Station 7 to GDN Command. She spoke into the transmitter, her voice surprisingly steady despite the terror clawing at her chest. I have multiple massive contacts approaching from beyond Pluto's orbit. Estimated arrival time is 68 hours. These objects are displaying impossible acceleration patterns and energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. The response came within minutes. General Marcus Thompson's weathered face appeared on her screen, his gray eyes sharp with decades of military experience. Dr. Rodriguez, are you absolutely certain about these readings? The implications of what you're suggesting are staggering. Elena's voice cracked slightly as she replied, General, I've run the diagnostics 17 times. We are definitely not alone in the universe, and whatever's coming toward us isn't sending us a greeting card. The ultimatum, the alien broadcast reached every corner of Earth simultaneously, transmitted on frequencies that humanity's most advanced equipment couldn't even detect. Yet somehow every radio, television, and communication device on the planet received it with perfect clarity. The message was simple, terrifying, and absolute. Admiral Krelnox's image filled screens across the globe, his alien features twisted with contempt and arrogance. Inhabitants of the world you call Earth, his voice boomed with mechanical precision, translated into every human language simultaneously. You have been selected for integration into the Vorthak Empire. Your primitive civilization will be dissolved. Your species will serve as laborers in our mining operations across the galaxy. Those who resist will be eliminated without mercy. The broadcast continued with footage from other worlds the Vorthak had conquered. Burning cities, fleeing populations, entire civilizations reduced to ash and painful memory. The message was crystal clear. Submit completely or face total annihilation. You have 48 hours to signal your complete and unconditional surrender, the Admiral continued. Gather your leaders at these coordinates. They will formally transfer control of your world to the Empire. Resistance is not only futile, but will result in the complete extermination of your species. Humanity's response in the White House Situation Room. President Sarah Williams stood surrounded by her advisors, military leaders, and scientists. The weight of humanity's entire future rested on her shoulders, and she could feel the eyes of history watching her every move. The room buzzed with panicked conversations, but she raised her hand for silence. Options, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. I want to know everything we can do in the next 48 hours. Secretary of State Michael Chun leaned forward. Madam President, we should consider diplomatic solutions. Perhaps we can negotiate some form of limited autonomy or establish trade relations instead of outright surrender. General Thompson slammed his fist on the table, his face flushed with anger. Negotiate? Did you see what they did to those other worlds? There's nothing left but radioactive craters and mass graves. These creatures don't negotiate, they exterminate. Dr. Rodriguez, who had been hastily flown in from Chile, looked up from her laptop displaying complex energy patterns and mathematical equations. I've been analyzing their transmission signals and the energy signatures of their approaching fleet. Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it's not magic. Everything operates according to physical laws, and if we can understand those laws, we might be able to develop countermeasures. President Williams looked around the room, seeing fear in some faces, grim determination in others. Ladies and gentlemen, humanity has faced extinction before. We've survived ice ages, global plagues, world wars, and natural disasters that should have wiped us out completely. We're still here because we adapt, we innovate, and we never give up when our backs are against the wall. She turned to General Thompson. Marcus, I want every military installation on the planet prepared for whatever's coming. Elena, I need you working around the clock with our best scientists to understand their technology. If these aliens want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget. The arrival of the Vorthak fleet dropped out of hyperspace like harbingers of doom, their massive vessels casting shadows across entire continents as they took positions in Earth's orbit. 15 ships, each the size of a city, bristled with weapons that could crack planets. Their hulls gleamed with alien metallurgy that seemed to absorb light itself, making them appear like holes torn in the fabric of space. Admiral Krelnox stood on the bridge of his flagship, the World Breaker, watching the blue planet turn slowly beneath him. His tactical displays showed the pathetic defensive preparations the humans had managed in their brief warning period. Crude missiles, primitive aircraft, and energy weapons that would barely scratch his ship's armor. Status report, he demanded, his voice carrying the authority of 3,000 years of conquest. Admiral, we're detecting scattered military movements across the planet's surface, his communications officer reported. However, there has been no response to our surrender demands. The humans appear to be mobilizing their primitive armed forces. Krelnox's laugh was like grinding metal. Foolish creatures. They choose extinction over servitude. Very well, we shall give them what they desire. Begin the demonstration. target their military installations and government centers, show them what happens to species that refuse the Empire's generous offer. The first strike the energy beams that lanced down from orbit were precise and devastating. The Pentagon became a glowing crater in seconds. The Kremlin, NATO headquarters in Brussels, and military bases across 6 continents were reduced to molten slag. The attack was surgical, designed to decapitate human leadership and break their will to resist. But the aliens had underestimated humanity's most dangerous trait, their ability to learn and adapt under pressure. The humans had studied the Vorthack's own broadcasts, analyzing how other species had fallen to their overwhelming first strikes. They had learned from their enemies' victories and prepared accordingly. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, backup command centers hummed with activity. General Thompson coordinated the global response from a bunker designed to survive nuclear war. All units, this is home base. Execute Operation Rising Phoenix. Repeat, execute Operation Rising Phoenix. Across the world, hidden installations came online. Missiles launched from concealed silos, not at the alien ships themselves, but at prepositioned satellites and orbital platforms. The explosions created massive electromagnetic pulses that temporarily disrupted the Vorthack's targeting systems, buying precious time for the next phase of humanity's desperate plan. The counterattack begins in laboratories hidden beneath cities and mountains. Teams of scientists worked frantically to understand fragments of alien technology that had fallen to Earth during the first attack. Dr. Rodriguez led a team of physicists, engineers, and computer specialists in a desperate race against time. The energy patterns are unlike anything we've seen, she explained to her exhausted team. But they're following quantum mechanical principles we recognize. Their weapons don't just destroy matter, they manipulate it at the subatomic level. Her assistant, Dr. James Park, looked up from his analysis. Elena, if we can replicate even a fraction of their energy manipulation technology, we could create weapons that would level the playing field. How long do we need? Asked Colonel Rebecca Hayes, the military liaison assigned to their project, Doctor. Rodriguez looked at the complex equations covering every available surface in the laboratory. Give us 12 hours and access to every particle accelerator and quantum computer on the planet. We'll give you weapons that can hurt them. As the first day of the invasion drew to a close, humanity had learned something crucial about their attackers. The Vorthack Empire's greatest strength was also their greatest weakness. They had conquered so many worlds so easily that they had become complacent, unable to adapt when their enemies fought back with unexpected tactics and technologies. The humans, on the other hand, had spent their entire history fighting wars, solving problems, and overcoming impossible odds. They had never known the luxury of easy victory, and that disadvantage was about to become their greatest advantage. Admiral Krellnox reviewed the day's casualty reports with growing confusion. The humans had lost millions of lives and seen their major cities devastated, but they had not surrendered. Instead, they had begun launching increasingly sophisticated attacks that shouldn't have been possible for a primitive species. Sir, his tactical officer reported, we're detecting energy signatures from the planet's surface that match our own weapon technology. But that's impossible. These creatures don't have the scientific knowledge to replicate our systems. The Admiral's confidence began to waver for the first time in centuries. Impossible or not, they're doing it. Prepare the fleet for extended operations. It appears these humans are going to require a more thorough lesson in the futility of resistance. But deep in his alien heart, Krellnox felt something he hadn't experienced in decades of conquest, uncertainty. These humans were not like the other species the Empire had defeated. They were something new, something dangerous, and something that refused to die quietly. The first day of the invasion was over, but the real war was just beginning, the Awakening the Human Breakthrough DR. Elena Rodriguez had not slept in 36 hours, but her mind was sharper than it had ever been. In the depths of the underground laboratory, surrounded by the greatest scientific minds Earth had ever assembled, she stared at the holographic display showing the alien energy patterns they had finally decoded. It's not just advanced technology, she explained to the gathered team of physicists, engineers, and military officers. It's elegant. They're manipulating quantum fields at the molecular level, but they're doing it with brute force rather than finesse. Their weapons are incredibly powerful, but they're also incredibly inefficient. Dr. James Park, her lead physicist, nodded excitedly. Elena, look at this. They're using massive amounts of energy to create relatively simple effects. It's like using a sledgehammer to crack an egg. If we can create more efficient quantum field manipulators, we could match their firepower with a fraction of the energy output. Colonel Rebecca Hayes, who had been coordinating between the scientific teams and military forces, leaned forward. How long do you need to weaponize this technology? Elena looked at the complex equations covering the laboratory walls. We've already started. The manufacturing plants that were building cars yesterday are now producing quantum field generators. The same assembly lines that made smartphones are creating targeting systems that can track objects moving at near light speed. The underground war above ground, the alien bombardment continued relentlessly. The Vorthack fleet had positioned itself in strategic locations around Earth's orbit, systematically destroying any military installation that showed signs of resistance. But beneath the surface, humanity was transforming itself into something the galaxy had never seen before. In Detroit, former automobile workers assembled quantum disruptor weapons with the same precision they had once used to build engines. In Silicon Valley, software engineers created targeting algorithms that could predict alien ship movements with uncanny accuracy. In rural communities across the globe, farmers welded armor plating and energy weapons onto tractors and construction equipment, creating impromptu war machines. Maria Santos, who had managed a car assembly plant for 20 years, now supervised the production of humanity's most advanced weapons. We're not just surviving, she told her workers as they completed another batch of quantum disruptors. We're evolving. Every hour, we learn something new about their technology. Every day, we become more dangerous. The transformation was happening at every level of human society. Children who had been playing video games were now programming targeting systems. Retirees who had spent decades in engineering were designing new weapons configurations. Artists and musicians were creating psychological warfare broadcasts that disrupted alien communications. The aliens' growing concern Admiral Krelnock stood before a tactical display that showed mounting losses across his fleet. 3 ships had been severely damaged by weapons that shouldn't exist, and his tactical officers were reporting increasingly sophisticated human countermeasures. Explain to me how a primitive species developed quantum field manipulation technology in less than 2 days, he demanded, his voice carrying the edge of barely controlled fury. His science officer, a creature whose species had served the Empire for 5 centuries, clicked his mandibles nervously. Admiral, our analysis suggests the humans are not developing new technology. They are adapting our technology at a rate that defies everything we know about technological development. Most species require decades to understand even basic quantum mechanics. These humans are mastering it in hours. General Vextar, whose reputation for crushing rebellions was legendary throughout the Empire, studied the tactical reports with growing unease. Admiral, I recommend we accelerate our timetable. The longer we allow these humans to adapt, the more dangerous they become. We should deploy our full fleet and end this resistance before it spreads. Krelnox's 4 eyes blazed with anger. Impossible. We are the Vorthack Empire. We have conquered 1,200 worlds. We will not be defeated by primitives who discovered space flight less than a century ago. But privately, the Admiral was beginning to understand that he was facing something unprecedented. The humans were not just resisting conquest, they were learning from it, growing stronger with each passing hour. The first victory, the breakthrough, came at dawn on the 3rd day of the invasion. Dr. Rodriguez's team had successfully reverse-engineered not just the aliens' weapons technology, but their shield systems as well. More importantly, they had discovered a fundamental flaw in the Vorthack design philosophy. Their shields are incredibly strong against direct energy attacks, Elena explained to General Thompson during an emergency briefing. But they're vulnerable to quantum resonance disruption. If we can create a specific frequency pattern, we can cause their entire defensive grid to collapse. The plan was audacious even by human standards. Every quantum disruptor on the planet would be fired simultaneously, creating a resonance cascade that would overload the aliens' shield generators. The timing had to be perfect, coordinated across 6 continents and multiple time zones. We get one shot at this, General Thompson warned. If it fails, we won't have the resources for another attempt. Elena nodded grimly. Then we'd better make it count. The coordinated strike across the globe. Humans prepared for the most important moment in their species' history. In hidden bunkers and makeshift facilities, operators stood ready at quantum disruptor controls. The weapons themselves were crude by alien standards, but they had been built with human ingenuity and desperation. Exactly 12 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time, General Thompson's voice echoed through communication systems worldwide. All stations, this is home base. On my mark, we show the galaxy what humanity is made of. 10 seconds. In the World Breakers Command Center, Admiral Krelnox watched his sensors with growing alarm. The energy buildup on the planet's surface was unlike anything in Vorthack records. The humans were channeling power levels that should have been impossible for their primitive technology. 5 seconds, Thompson's voice continued. 4, 3, 2, 1, fire. The sky above Earth erupted in brilliant light as hundreds of quantum disruptors fired simultaneously. The energy beams lanced upward, each one carrying the hopes and dreams of an entire species. They struck the alien fleet at precisely the same moment, creating a resonance cascade that tore through the Vorthack ship's quantum field generators. Victory and Transformation Admiral Krelnox watched in horror as his supposedly invincible fleet began to tear itself apart. The quantum matrices that powered their weapons, shields, and propulsion systems collapsed in a cascade of failures. One by one, the mighty vessels of the Empire fell silent, their crews trapped inside metal coffins drifting in the void. Impossible, he whispered, his voice echoing through the suddenly quiet bridge. They were supposed to be primitives, but the evidence was undeniable. The humans had not just defeated the Vorthack fleet, they had utterly destroyed it using the Empire's own technology against them. Of the 15 ships that had arrived to conquer Earth, only 3 remained functional, and they were already beginning emergency retreat procedures that on Earth's surface, the celebration was muted by exhaustion and loss. Entire cities lay in ruins, millions had died in the bombardment, and the planet's infrastructure was shattered. But humanity had survived, and more importantly, they had proven something to themselves and to the galaxy. General Thompson stood in the ruins of what had once been Washington, D.C., watching the alien wreckage fall from orbit like metal rain. Dr. Rodriguez, what's our status on the captured alien technology? Elena's voice crackled through the communicator, exhausted but triumphant. Marcus, we've secured enough intact systems to reverse engineer their entire fleet. We're not just survivors anymore. We're a spacefaring species with technology that can challenge the galaxy's greatest empire. The ripple effect as news of the Vorthack defeat spread across the galaxy. Something unprecedented began to happen. Species that had been conquered centuries ago started to whisper of rebellion. The empire that had seemed invincible was revealed to be nothing more than a collection of bullies who had never faced real resistance. On the slave world of Kurgan 7, the Altarian workers who had been mining precious metals for 300 years looked up at the stars with new hope. The humans had done the impossible. They had defeated the Vorthack Empire using nothing but ingenuity, determination, and the refusal to surrender. Similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds across the galaxy. The human victory was more than just a military defeat for the Empire. It was proof that the Vorthack could be beaten, that freedom was possible, and that even the most powerful oppressors could fall to those who refused to give up. The Empire's Farron Vorthack Prime. The news of the fleet's destruction sent shockwaves through the highest levels of government. The emperor himself, ancient and terrible, listened to Admiral Krellnox's report with growing rage, and for the first time in millennia, genuine fear. These humans destroyed 15 of our greatest warships using primitive technology. The emperor's voice was like grinding stone. How is this possible? Krellnox's surviving ships had limped back to the Empire's core worlds, carrying with them reports that defied everything the Vorthak believed about their own superiority. Great Emperor, the humans are not what we believe them to be. They are not primitives, they are survivors, and they are learning at a rate that threatens everything we have built. The Emperor's massive form shifted on his crystalline throne. Then we must destroy them before they become a true threat to the Empire. Prepare the Grand Fleet. We will not make the same mistake twice. But even as he spoke, the Emperor knew that something fundamental had changed. The humans had not just defeated a Vorthak fleet, they had shattered the myth of Vorthak invincibility. And myths, once broken, could never be repaired. Humanity's new path. In the weeks following the victory, humanity underwent a transformation that would have been impossible to imagine just months earlier. The alien technology they had captured was being studied, understood, and improved upon at a rate that astounded even the humans themselves. Dr. Elena Rodriguez now led a global research consortium that included scientists from every nation on Earth. We're not just copying their technology, she explained to President Williams during a briefing. We're improving it. Our version of their quantum field generators is 30% more efficient than theirs. Our shield systems are stronger, and our weapons are more precise. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not only survived first contact with a hostile alien empire, but had emerged from the encounter stronger and more advanced than ever before. The species that had been scheduled for extinction was now building starships in orbital shipyards, preparing to take their place among the stars. The second part of humanity's story drew to a close. The galaxy was beginning to understand that something new had emerged from the small blue planet. The humans were not just another species to be conquered or ignored. They were a force of nature, driven by an unquenchable curiosity and an absolute refusal to surrender in the face of impossible odds. The Vorthak Empire had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years through fear and overwhelming force. But now they faced an enemy that grew stronger with each challenge, that adapted to every threat, and that would never stop fighting for freedom. The age of human expansion was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. Part 3. The Fire rises. The counter-invasion 6 months after the defeat of the first Vorthak fleet, Earth had transformed into something unrecognizable. The blue planet that had once been dismissed as primitive now bristled with orbital defense platforms, manufacturing stations, and shipyards that stretched from the moon to the asteroid belt. Humanity had not just recovered from the alien invasion. They had used it as a catalyst for the greatest technological leap in their species' history. Admiral Sarah Chun, formerly Dr. Rodriguez's research assistant, now commanded the Earth Defense Force from the bridge of humanity's first interstellar warship, the Defiant. Built using reverse-engineered alien technology, but improved with human innovation, the ship represented everything the species had become: adaptable, determined, and absolutely refusing to remain victims. Admiral, we're receiving distress signals from the Kepler 442 system, reported Lieutenant Commander James Park, the ship's science officer. The transmissions are fragmented, but they appear to be coming from a species under Vorthak attack. Sarah studied the tactical display, her mind racing through the implications. How long since the Empire conquered that system? According to our intelligence, about 200 years ago, Park replied. The indigenous species, the Kethran, were forced into slavery. But these transmissions suggest they're attempting some kind of rebellion. Sarah's eyes hardened with determination. Then, it's time we reminded the galaxy what humans do when innocent people are being oppressed. Navigation, plot a course for Kepler 442. Maximum velocity. The Galactic Rebellion, the news of humanity's victory over the Vorthak, had spread throughout the galaxy like wildfire, carried by traders, refugees, and the few free species that remained outside the Empire's control. On dozens of conquered worlds, populations that had accepted their fate for centuries began to whisper of possibility that on the mining world of Drachner Prime, the Zephyrian workers who had been enslaved for 800 years gathered in secret to plan their uprising. Their leader, a scarred veteran named Crixtel, addressed the assembled rebels with growing excitement. The humans proved it can be done, he said, his voice carrying through the underground caverns where they met. A single world defeated the Empire's fleet. Imagine what we could accomplish if we worked together. Similar meetings were taking place across the galaxy. The Altarians of Kurgan, 7 were sabotaging mining equipment. The aquatic Merthak of Oceanus III were disrupting the Empire's underwater facilities. Even the peaceful Ethnari, who had never raised a weapon in their 1,000-year history, were beginning to resist their oppressors. The rebellion was spreading, and at its heart was the inspiration provided by a small blue planet that had refused to surrender. The Empire's desperation on Vorthak Prime, the Council of Warlords convened in emergency session. The holographic displays surrounding them showed a galaxy in chaos, with rebellion spreading like a plague across their conquered territories. The Emperor himself presided over the meeting, his ancient features twisted with rage and something that might have been fear. "Report," he commanded, his voice echoing through the obsidian chamber. Admiral Krelnox, his carapace still bearing the scars of his encounter with humanity, stepped forward. "Great Emperor, we have lost contact with 17 systems in the past month. The rebellions are coordinated, and they're using human technology to resist our forces." "How is this possible?" demanded General Vextar. "The humans have been contained to their single world. Our blockade prevents them from spreading their influence." The Emperor's scientist advisor, a creature whose species had served the Empire for millennia, clicked his mandibles nervously. "Great Emperor, our intelligence suggests the humans are not spreading their influence directly. Instead, they are broadcasting technical information, tactical guidance, and what they call moral support to the rebel groups. They are teaching the galaxy how to fight us." The Emperor's massive form shifted on his throne. "Then we must end this at its source. Prepare the Grand Fleet. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier the Empire possesses. We will reduce Earth to cosmic dust and end this rebellion once and for all." The human fleet, as the Vorthak Empire mobilized its forces for the final assault on Earth, humanity was preparing for something far more ambitious than mere defense. The orbital shipyards around Earth worked around the clock, producing vessels that combined alien technology with human innovation to create something entirely new. Admiral Chun stood in the war room of the Defiant, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of human ships throughout the solar system. The fleet that had once consisted of a single experimental vessel now numbered in the hundreds, each one crewed by humans who had volunteered to take the fight to the galaxy's oppressors. "Status report," she requested, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had helped transform humanity from victims to liberators. Captain Maria Santos, formerly a factory supervisor and now commander of the heavy cruiser Liberation, responded from her position near Jupiter. "Admiral, the shipyards have completed production of the new quantum torpedo systems. Every ship in the fleet is now equipped with weapons that can penetrate Vorthak shields." "Excellent," Chun replied. "And our allies?" The response came from across the galaxy. The Kethran rebels had successfully captured 3 Vorthak battlecruisers and were using them to attack Imperial supply lines. The Zephyrians had destroyed the mining facilities on Drachner Prime and were preparing to assault the planet's garrison. Dozens of other species were reporting similar successes. The final gambit, the Vorthak Grand Fleet that assembled for the assault on Earth, was the largest military force in galactic history. Over 3,000 ships, representing the accumulated might of a 3,000-year empire, prepared to annihilate the troublesome humans once and for all. But Admiral Chun had no intention of allowing the battle to be fought in Earth's solar system. Instead, she had prepared a strategy that would have been impossible for any other species to conceive, let alone execute. "All ships, this is Admiral Chun," she broadcast to the human fleet. "We are not going to wait for the Empire to come to us. We are going to meet them at Vortak Prime and end this war where it began. Today, we liberate the galaxy. The human fleet jumped to hyperspace, their destination, the very heart of the Vortak Empire. It was a move so audacious, so completely unexpected, that it caught the Empire's forces completely off guard. The battle for Vortak Prime, the space around the Empire's capital world, erupted in the most spectacular battle in galactic history. The Vortak Grand Fleet, caught between their home world and the approaching human armada, found themselves fighting a war on multiple fronts as rebel forces across the galaxy launched simultaneous attacks. Admiral Chen watched from the bridge of the Defiant as human ships engaged the enemy with tactics that no military academy had ever taught. They used asteroids as cover, employed gravitational slingshots to achieve impossible velocities, and coordinated their attacks with a precision that left the rigid Vortak command structure struggling to respond. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from across the galaxy," Lieutenant Commander Park announced. "The Kethran have liberated their home world. The Zephyrians have captured the Drachner system. The rebellion is succeeding on every front." But the battle for Vortak Prime was far from over. The Empire's forces, despite their surprise at the human audacity, were beginning to coordinate their response. The ancient weapons platforms that protected the capital world came online, their devastating firepower capable of destroying entire fleets. The Quantum Cascade. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now serving as the human fleet's chief scientist, had spent months studying the Empire's technology for weaknesses. What she discovered was something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. "Admiral," she reported from the Defiant Science Laboratory, "I found it. The Empire's entire technological infrastructure is based on a single quantum frequency. If we can disrupt that frequency on a planetary scale, we can shut down every Vortak system simultaneously." The plan was desperate, dangerous, and potentially suicidal. Every human ship would need to coordinate their quantum disruptors to create a cascade effect that would overload the Empire's central quantum matrix. The energy requirements were enormous, and there was no guarantee that the human ships would survive the process. "Do it," Chen ordered without hesitation. "If we don't end this now, the Empire will recover, and the galaxy will never be free." The liberation, the quantum cascade that erupted around Vortak Prime, was visible from neighboring star systems. The combined firepower of the human fleet, enhanced by rebel forces throughout the galaxy, created a resonance effect that tore through the Empire's technological infrastructure like a virus on the capital world below. The ancient towers that had stood for millennia began to crumble. The weapons platforms that had protected the system for 3,000 years went dark. The shields that had made the Empire's ships invincible flickered and died. Emperor Vortak himself, ancient and terrible, watched from his crystalline throne as his empire collapsed around him. The screens that had once shown him the conquest of 1,200 worlds now displayed rebellion and liberation spreading across the galaxy. "How?" he whispered, his voice barely audible above the sound of his crumbling palace. "How did primitives from a single world destroy everything we built?" Admiral Krelnox, his ship powerless and drifting in the void, provided the answer in his final transmission. "They were never primitives, great emperor. They were survivors, and survivors never give up." The new galaxy in the weeks following the fall of Vortak Prime, the galaxy underwent the most dramatic transformation in its recorded history. The empire that had oppressed countless species for 3 millennia was no more, replaced by a loose confederation of free worlds working together to rebuild and recover. Earth, once dismissed as a primitive backwater, became the center of this new alliance. Not because humans demanded leadership, but because they had proven that freedom was possible, that oppression could be defeated, and that even the most powerful tyrants could fall to those who refused to surrender. Admiral Sarah Chun, now serving as the first director of Galactic Defense, stood in the memorial chamber built to honor those who had died in the Liberation Wars. The names of humans, Kethran, Zephyrians, and dozens of other species covered the walls, a testament to the price of freedom. "The galaxy is free," she said to the assembled representatives of 100 worlds. "But freedom must be protected. We have learned that the universe is a dangerous place, full of those who would oppress others for their own gain. We must never again allow such an empire to rise. The species that had been scheduled for extinction had become the galaxy's protectors. The humans who had been dismissed as primitives had proven that intelligence, determination, and the absolute refusal to surrender could overcome any obstacle. The eternal fire years passed, and the galaxy settled into a new rhythm of peace and cooperation. The former slave worlds had been rebuilt, their populations free to pursue their own destinies for the first time in centuries. Trade routes that had once carried the spoils of conquest now facilitated cultural exchange and mutual prosperity, but humanity had learned a crucial lesson from their encounter with the Vortak Empire. Eternal vigilance was the price of freedom. They established the Galactic Defense Network, a system of early warning stations and rapid response fleets that could detect and counter any new threats before they could gain a foothold at Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now in her 70s but still sharp as ever, led the research efforts to ensure that the galaxy's new freedom would never again be threatened. In her laboratory on the space station orbiting Earth, she worked with scientists from dozens of species to develop new technologies and defenses. The universe is vast, she often told her students, many of whom belonged to species that had been enslaved just years before. Somewhere out there, other empires may be rising, other tyrants may be gathering their forces, but they will find a galaxy that is ready for them, a galaxy that has learned the true meaning of unity and strength. The memorial chamber on Earth grew each year, not with new casualties of war, but with the names of those who dedicated their lives to preserving freedom, teachers who spread knowledge to former slave worlds, engineers who rebuilt devastated civilizations, diplomats who forged new alliances between species that had been enemies for millennia. Admiral Sarah Chun, though she had retired from active military service, continued to serve as an advisor to the Galactic Council. She often walked through the gardens of New Geneva, where representatives from across the galaxy met to discuss common challenges and shared opportunities. We showed them the fire, she would tell visitors, referring to the human spirit that had sparked the galactic revolution. But the real victory wasn't in defeating the Empire. It was in proving that freedom is possible, that cooperation is stronger than conquest, and that the smallest spark can ignite a flame that burns across the stars. The galaxy had learned that the greatest strength came not from the ability to conquer, but from the willingness to stand together against those who would oppress others. The humans had given them that lesson, but every species had contributed to making it reality, and in the depths of space, human exploration vessels continued to push the boundaries of known space, not as conquerors, but as pioneers. They carried with them the message that had transformed the galaxy, that every species had value, that freedom was worth fighting for, and that the fire of determination could overcome any darkness. The Vortak Empire had thought Earth was a joke. They had learned, too late, that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or their tactics, but their absolute refusal to accept that anything was impossible. That fire now burned in the hearts of every free being in the galaxy, ensuring that tyranny would never again find easy victims among the stars. The war was over, but the flame of freedom would burn eternal, carried forward by all who had learned the true meaning of resistance, hope, and the unbreakable will to remain free.